Now I can move X. Okay, sorry. So now we can go ahead and identify the A, because we can see that from any of the three forms. And what would that be? In here, what would A be? Where'd you get that, Jordan?
From the left one.
Yep. In the original form, look at it says the A is right in front of the parentheses. It's a number that's being multiplied by the parentheses. Well, there's nothing there, so the only number that I could put there that would not change because I'm multiplying would be that imaginary 1 that's out there. So your A would be 1, which means my parabola would open up. And it would be the same idea as the parent function. Yeah. Yep. Every single form you can find A. So if you want to, it wouldn't be a bad idea to just say A under every single one of these, because for all of them you can find A. Every single one. Okay, let's take a look at 2. What form is this one in?
Vertex.
How do we know that?
Because the A is out in front, and then at the back you have the K. Except it's subtract.
And we also have that exponent that is acting on the parentheses. Because sometimes people have a difficult time, especially once we get to a couple later examples, to determine if it's in factored form or vertex form. So vertex form has to have that squared on the parentheses. Okay? So from vertex form, what can we identify first?
Vertex.
No. Vertex. And that one's a nice reminder. Vertex form, find the vertex. That's H and K, but now remember, what's inside the parentheses is always the opposite. So what's inside the parentheses is a positive 1, so the opposite of that is, and then what's outside the parentheses is true to form. So your vertex would be at -1, -3. And remember, that's either going to be the lowest point if this opens up when we decide that, or the highest point if that opens down. What else can we identify?
Yes.
That would be at x equals -1. And last but not least, A is equal to 4, which means this is going to open up and it's going to be narrower. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. Number 3, what form is this? Why do you say vertex, Jaden?
Because it would be vertex, but just instead of like K, it would be 0.
There you go. But what identified it to be vertex for you? The exponent of 2 that's acting on the parentheses. That means then it's in vertex form. A is in all of them, though. A would also be if it's factored form. Ashley?
Can you go back to the
Yeah, just give me let me finish this one and then I will, okay? Okay, what can we figure out then? It's similar to what we just said. We should be able to find the vertex. So where do you think that is? Jaden already identified the K.
It's -6
There you go.
plus or comma 0.
That would be at -6, 0, because there's nothing after the parentheses squared. So yeah, I can put that plus 0 there and not change it at all. Axis of symmetry. What would we get for the axis of symmetry?
-6.
X equals -6, good. And last but not least, as always, which means it's going to open up and it's going to be narrow.
Let's go.
Okay?
Trace.
4.
Standard.
That one's in standard form. We haven't dealt with that one yet. Guys, stop it, please. What can we identify from standard form? And in this case, it's going to be at 0, 1. Nice. Remember, if it's not in parentheses, it's true to form, whatever it is. And then, as always, we can always identify not axis of symmetry. And in this case, what does A equal? Good, 4. Which means it is narrow and opens up.
So it's always 0 for the wider stuff? Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep, because that's the only way you would go up to or down to a value on the graph to get to your y-axis. Okay, next page. Okay, we have 5 of them. Okay, you are sitting with a partner. I'm going to give each group rows 1 and 2, rows 2 and 3, and 3 and 4, and rows 5 and 6 different numbers to work on, and then we're going to all compare answers and so forth after. So rows 1 and 2, I want you to work on 5 and 6. Okay, so work with your partner and try to answer everything like we just did for 5 and 6. Okay? Rows 3 and 4, I want you guys to work on 7 and 8. Work on 7 and 8, same thing like we just did with 1 through 4. You're finding the form and all the important points. No, well, that's not fair. I'm going to have you guys do 9 and 6.
Let's go.
9 and 6. Okay? And then Grace, why don't you turn around to where we landed so that we all have a partner.
So which one is 0?
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's it.
What is it?
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. And then just
Age 3, 8.
but thing is,
That's standard form also. Why intercept?
0
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 1 is the
Really?
Landon, you're doing it tomorrow.
Oh. So maybe.
Actually, what do you Huh? The color tomorrow?
Oh, it's H. S is equals to H. Yeah, so you're
Take your course or summative. This one.
Can you leave me alone? Well, I didn't get there yet. Distracted by me. You're going to
Oh, yeah, but isn't it that?
There's someone
Bro. Yeah, no, I'm saying like.
You guys have film on here?
I'm pretty sure it's 1. Alright.
You guys
I'm
have
gonna say
film.
1. I'm at Alright, bet.
Hey.
If I get this wrong, Miss
Tony.
No.
What'd you get? So I asked you first. Chris, what'd you get? I'm telling you. You didn't see anything.
We have a question. So we're at 8.
What'd you get? You must be weird. I got the C. Tony, what'd you get on second grade? Tony, what'd you get on second grade? Tony, what'd you get on second grade?
You got a D?
Yeah.
Yes, let's go. I got a grade higher than you. Just kidding. Oh. I got a lot of these ones. Hey. Oh.
Oh, it's just here. I don't it's not just this. Yeah, I never did that. Yeah, I just did it. So just.
Chris, you didn't answer that.
Okay, just put those off underneath, put those off to the side underneath your notes. I will come around and collect those before you leave. But let's go ahead and talk about what we have here. Number 5, so we have rows 1 and 2. Okay, I'm talking to you. The rest of you should be writing this information down as rows 1 and 2 give us the information. We divided and conquered. So, what form is number 5? Factored form. What was the first important thing you got from factored form then? X-intercepts, which would be
I was looking at this one.
not -3, +3, because it's the opposite whenever it's in parentheses. Good. Then we can also get the and to do that, what do we do in the factored form? Perfect. You just average them. So you take -2 plus 3 divided by 2, and this is x equals, sorry, and you get 1 over 2. That's fine. That just means it'll be in between 0 and 1 when we're finding our axis of symmetry, that bolded line. And always, 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 we can find our A. What is it in this case? Perfect. So it opens up, and it's the same. Good. Any questions on number 5?
No.
Okay, number 6. Okay. That's also rows 1 and 2, but it's also rows 5 and 6, because I was short one. So, taking a look at this one, what form is this in?
Vertex form.
No. This one is in factored form. That's why I gave them both to you, because I knew that this one was a tricky one. What doesn't that have to make it factor or vertex form? It doesn't have the exponent on the parentheses. So if it doesn't have the exponent on the parentheses, it's not vertex form. This can be rewritten if I want to. Shh, guys, quiet, please. This can be rewritten as y equals x plus 0 times x minus 3. Those are the exact same things. Okay? To be in vertex form, you have to have the squared on the parentheses. So, from factored form, it's the exact same thing as 5. We can find the x-intercepts. It probably will help now that I rewrote that. What are the x-intercepts?
3, 0.
3, 0, and 0, 0. Because of that other x, you have that other x-intercept. So then the axis of symmetry is going to be x equals, and again you average your two x-intercepts. 0 plus 3 divided by 2, which is just 3/2. And last but not least, A would be equal to what? 1. There's that imaginary 1. So whenever you're adding or subtracting a number that isn't there, that would be plus 0, because that's the additive property of equality. But the multiplicative property of equality says that you can multiply anything by 1 and not change it. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 plus 0 is 10. So that's what you have to be careful of. Okay, 7. That was rows 3 and 4. What form do we have for 7? Standard. Perfect. What can we identify from that? Which is? Perfect. Anything else? Which means it's going to open upward and be narrower. Okay, let's take a look at number 8. What do we have? Standard form. Y-intercept is? And?
A1.
Which means it's going to open up and be the same.
Thanks, Terry.
Okay, last but not least for these, 9. And that's rows 5 and 6. What form is this?
Factor form.
Good.
Factor.
I get the
X-intercept 2, 0 plus 3, 0.
and. That's an and sign that I use.
And 3, 0.
Yep.
And then the axis of symmetry. So you find the average, you do 3 plus 2 over 2. Boom.
5 halves if you want to, 2 1/2. Remember, you do get to use a calculator on this test, but it has to be a handheld calculator. You can't use your iPad calculator on this test because, again, we're graphing, so we don't want you to just enter the equation in your graph, your y equals, like we taught you, and be able to do that. And last but not least, what's A?
5 over 2. Wait, negative 5 or 5 over 2?
Negative 5. Axis of symmetry is x equals 5 halves or 2 1/2. A is the number that is in front of everything. So it's negative 5, which means it will open down and be very narrow. Okay, any questions on those?
Oh, man.
Okay, let's flip back to the previous page. Now we have to talk about this, how to plot points. From those different forms, we can identify the vertex, the x-intercepts, the y-intercepts, and that's it, right? So we only have 3 points. We need more points to be able to make that U shape or N shape. So there are 2 ways that you can think of this, and I'm going to show you both ways. We're going to practice this a lot more as the chapter progresses. But rate of change, kind of similar to the slope. The first thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to show you both of these, is from the vertex. You're always going to go back to your reference point, which is at the vertex. Right? If you go right 1, you're going to go up 1 squared times A. If you go right 2 units from the vertex, you're going to go up 2 squared times whatever your A value is. And if you go right 3 squares, you're going to go up 3 squared times A. Okay? And I think this one's a little bit easier to remember because you're just going 1 and then up 1 squared times whatever A is. Right 2 and then up 2 squared. Right 3 and then up 3 squared. Or that's the same thing as 1, 4, 9. That absolutely always will work. I, however, prefer the other technique because I think it's a little bit quicker. Okay. Everyone have that? Okay, the other one is from the previous point. It's the rate of change from the previous point that you just drew. And the reason I like this is because we've hammered into your head that the rate of change is rise over run. This is what it is. It's not right 1 and then up 1. Right 1 and then up 4. Right 2, excuse me, and then right 3, up 9. This is rise of 1 times whatever A is over 1. Rise of 3 times whatever A is over 1. And you'll notice it's all of your odd numbers. But you cannot forget to include that A when it's something other than 1. So if your A was 2, for example, we would rise 2, run 1. Then rise 6, and run 1. Then rise, 10, and then run 1. Okay? So let's now skip. I wanted all that information in the same place, so now let's skip to the last page we're going over today, which is the graphs. Okay, so by the end of this chapter, I will give you, what form is this first one?
Factor.
That's the factored form. I will give you factored form, and you will be able to give me that exact same equation in standard form or vertex form. They're all equivalent. I just happen to give you all 3 of these equations here. By the end, you're going to be able to do that for me. So, in factored form, this is where we're at right now. What can you tell me from factored form?
The x-intercept.
Correct.
Let's go.
And for this particular example, what are the x-intercepts?
1 and
1, 0, and 5, 0. I'm going to plot those on my graph. 1, 0 is to the right 1 and 0 up or down. 5, 0 is to the right 5, 0 up or down. And that makes sense because they cross my x-axis. Okay, standard form. What do I get from standard form?
Y. Yeah.
And in this particular example, that would be at 0, 10.
Yep.
Because that's not in parentheses, so it's true to form. So I would just go 0 right or left, but up 10 on the y-axis. And last but not least, vertex form. I get the,
Vertex.
which is at, for this example, 3, -8. So right 3 and then down 8 squares. That's awesome. That gives us a great start, right? Because we can almost kind of see that U shape. We can also always identify the A, which I can look at any of these forms. What is it?
2.
2? Which means that this is going to open up and be narrower. But that 2 is what's going to help me to figure out other points that I can plot on this graph. So if I do it the first way, I am going to go right 1 and then up. 1 squared is 1, and then 1 times 2, which is 2. So I'm from the vertex, I'm going to go right 1 and up 2. And what I do on one side, because this is symmetrical, I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Left 1 and up 2.
We were going from
The vertex. This first way we view it is always from the vertex. Okay? The next one, I would go right 2 now, and then go up. 2 squared is 4, and then 4 times A, which is 2, is 8. So from the vertex, I'm always going back to the vertex. I'm going to go right 2, and then up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's my x-intercept, isn't it? Or I could go left 2 and up 8 because it's symmetrical. Next, right 3, up, 3 squared is 9, and then times 2, 18. Okay, so I would go right 1, 2, 3, and up 18. And this is one of the reasons why I don't necessarily like this technique. And if I go left 3 and up 18, I'm on my y-intercept. So now I have my complete U shape for my parabola. Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay, now let's do the same thing, only I'll show you for the rate of change. I'll show you the other technique. So, first form, negative x squared plus 2x plus 15. That's standard. I get my y-intercept from that. So for this particular example, it would be 0, 15. Let's go ahead and plot that. It's all the way at the top. The next form, negative, and then x plus 3 and x minus 5 in parentheses. Which in this case would be 3, 0. Yep, it would be negative, thank you. But it is negative 3 first. Y is the one where 0 comes first. And then the other one would be
Positive 5, 0.
Yep. So negative 3, 0, 5, 0. Okay. The last one then, hopefully, is in vertex form by process of elimination.
Zero.
116, good, I heard that. That one's going to be off the graph, but just a little bit, so I'm going to just put it a little bit higher than the y-intercept there. So the graph only went to 15. Well, hold on, we're not done, because every time we can find the a value. So here's the other rate of change. This is from the previous point that we have. So instead of always going back to the vertex, we come up with another set of points. We're going to start from there. So this is rise over run, which is going to be 1 times a over 1. 3 times a over 1. 5 times a over 1, 7 times a over 1, and I can keep going for as long as I want. 9 times a over 1. It's always your odd numbers. So, from the vertex, 1 times negative 1 is negative 1, so I'm actually going to fall 1 and go to the right one. And since it's symmetrical, I'm going to fall 1 and also go to the left one. Now from those red points that I have on my screen, those are the new points. Now I'm going to, 1 times negative 3 is negative 3, so I'm going to fall 3 and go to the left and the right one. Then from those points, it was negative 5 over 1. So I'm going to fall 5, run 1 to the left and to the right. From those red points, those new red points then, I just did 5. The next one would be negative 7, 1. Which puts me at my x-intercepts. And then I could even go again for negative 9. Oops. And now you will see your parabola. Okay? So, that I just wanted to show you as we were identifying all the forms and things like that. If you are not completely comfortable and set on the graphing portion of it, that's fine. We're going to practice that much more throughout the course of this chapter. But at the very least, as you are doing your homework tonight, which I got to pass out your packets, you have to be able to identify the form and the key pieces to the form, or from that form. Yep, I will be glad. So, this can either be found on BB9, your homework, what it is, the calendar is still there. It looks a little bit different because I don't have the 2 cohorts. Or, since you're in class, you can also, now that I have everybody on the same page, look over here. And this is the Algebra 2 column. So today is the first day this week that I'm seeing you in class. It'll be pages 2 through 3 in the homework. Okay? So if you open your homework to pages 2 and 3, here's 2, here's 3. That's what you need to have done for tomorrow. On the front, it's exactly, quiet please. It's exactly like what we did in the notes for those 9 problems. However, I'm giving you all of the things. You're not going to fill out every single line on this page. Because unless you're given the standard form, you can't identify the y-intercept. So if you're not given the standard form, leave the y-intercept blank. If you're not given vertex form, leave the vertex blank. You're only filling in what you can based on that form. Okay? And then on the back, I do have a couple where it looks similar to the last 2 that we did with the graphs, but if you don't feel comfortable, just plop those equations into your y equals on your graphing calculator for today only, and draw a rough sketch and then figure out the answers to those on the side. Okay? Okay.
So you just use the graphing calculator.